Welcome to the Manifesting Millions podcast, where we talk about manifestation, money, and practical guidance to creating your dream reality. My name is Amy Van Meel, and I am an experienced coach and transformation guide, obsessed with helping you get out of your own way and create a life that blows your mind each day you wake up. My goal in this podcast is to share practical manifestation, self-awareness, and growth techniques in real talk conversations. So if you're ready to massively transform your reality, your finances, your relationships, and your overall enjoyment of life, you are in the right place. I am absolutely delighted that you're here with me today, babe. Let's get into it. Well, hello and welcome to the Manifesting Millions podcast. Oh, the heat has finally broken. It is a cooler day. I think it's like maybe 15 or 18 degrees, but the humidity is high. And for this curly-haired beauty, it means that I have all the curls going on. I'm excited to be here with you today. It's been a very interesting week, and it's only Wednesday, and it's a short work week because it was the August long weekend. But yeah, today's episode is really coming to you just out of sheer inspiration. Last week's episode was all about some manifesting hacks. I talk a lot on the podcast as well as on my socials about like how I work in flow. And I wanted to just like come on and have a candid conversation about what that looks like. So where do I start? I'm going to just start with like where I'm at right now, because that's really what prompted today's episode. When I've shared, I think it's maybe 15 episodes ago, I shared about how I've made some changes to my health and nutrition in order to really like supplement my body and support my body when I go through my every month menstrual cycle. And it's gotten a lot better, but definitely it still throws me for a loop. And the part that I find so fascinating is that like the week before, not always, but almost every time, the week before my period hits, I am super focused. I'm super productive. I'm in the energy that I just love so much, which is me creating and writing content, whether that's writing the workshop, like the workshop that I have going on this week. I'll share more on that in a second, or other free workshops that I've done, or I'm writing like bonus modules for the Building Vampires program, which is opening up for enrollment next week. Hot tip. I get super productive and I get super focused. And those are like, oh my God, those days are like catnip to me. They feel so good. I love having something that I can point to at the end of the day of like, look, that's the thing that I did. And yeah, so it always feels like a really great week. My energy is good. Like motivation is usually pretty good. All that stuff is good. And then my period hits. And I know to expect like a massive dip in my energy, even with the B12 that I talked about taking, like it helps a lot. And not all periods are the same. Some I take a really deep hit where like I can barely function and I basically just like nap a bunch of times a day for a couple of days. And then there's some that like aren't too bad. So it varies from one to the other, but what is consistent is that like my ability to focus and create tends to go away. So I used to really like struggle against this and I used to really fight against this. And then I realized that like, that's actually not helping me. This is actually a natural phase of rest. It's literally like, I mean, moon cycles are similar, season cycles are the same, right? Like winter is seen as a time of rest. It's the same idea, which is why like our bodies just like power down and we're in this period of like resting, shedding, kind of like chilling, and we want all the cozy things. But here's where it gets messed up with me. So as I'm coming out of my period and my energy is starting to come back and my concentration is starting to come back, what I find myself then struggling with is that now I have this energy and I have this focus, but I just can't seem to like pick what I'm wanting to work on. So you're going to hear me unzipping my vest because it's cool here. And so I was wearing warmer clothes, but once I start recording, I get hot. So what I've noticed is this pattern where so my energy comes back, my focus starts to come back, and I want to go back after that productivity. Now, what I've learned about working in flow, when I say working in flow, it's sort of like two different things. One is working in flow with my body. So understanding when my body is cycling down or cycling up and like leaning into those phases, right? This is where I'm really good at I'll call it the more extreme ends. So the one end being um like cycling down, my period has arrived, my energy has like taken a hiatus, and now I'm just like cycling down for some rest. And the other is that week right before, which is like high productivity, super focused, and I feel really good. So those 2 weeks I feel like I've kind of got dialed in. It's the transition times. In particular, I'd call it probably like the 10 days that's like sort of starts halfway through my cycle and then heads into, I can't remember all the cycles off the top of my head. So like, don't remember if it's like the follicular first, or the luteal, because I don't remember where we're at, but that's okay. When I'm in that space, it's a totally different energy flow. Okay. So that's one way that I mean, like when I say I'm working in flow. One is like tying into my body. The other is working in flow where I feel like I'm in flow with source. So when I sit down to write content, when I sit down to record a podcast, those moments, like I really feel like I'm channeling in information and knowledge and wisdom and the structure to say them in a way that lands. And that feels super good. And it doesn't happen all the time. So I've learned to be patient in the in between times. But definitely it's one of those things. It's like, okay, like once I'm in it, like, oh my gosh, hours could go by and I wouldn't notice. Because I'm just like sitting with my laptop writing and creating away, and it feels so good. So that's a different kind of flow. I'd call that more of an energetic flow or a universal flow. And when like my body flow and the universe flow comes together, whew, it is juicy as fuck. And I love it. But what do I do in the in-between times? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I also I have no structure for our conversation today. Today is the inspired moment of the topic, and you are going to be with me in real time as I talk through something while I'm in this like weird in-between phase. And because I'm really focusing on this information like really being helpful for women, then of course it makes sense for me to share this. If my podcast was focused on like dealing specifically with men, guys would be like, I don't get it, Amy. Why are you telling me this stuff? So I figure that you, as a fellow woman, have some sense of understanding of like what I'm going to be sharing. So what I want to talk about specifically is like, what do I do when I'm feeling those like kind of out of sync sort of flow moments, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of time in the day and in the week and in the month that aren't necessarily tuned into flow. So, what does that look like? How do we handle that? And how do we make sure that those don't become these like super frustrating pieces? So, I'm going to share today as an example. So I'm coming out of like the deep void of energy, which means my energy is starting to come back into me. My focus is coming back, and I'm feeling this. This happens all the time. I'm feeling this like kind of internal pushing almost that I want to get back into production mode. And production can be any of a variety of things, but we'll just like sort of like wash it with this overall idea of doing something that is building and growing my business. Okay. So we'll just use this as a general parameter. So to start, I am really like focusing on reaching out to a number of different podcasts to offer myself as a podcast guest. So if you have a podcast and you're listening to this and you're interested in having me on as a guest, reach out to me on the DMs and social. That's probably the easiest way. Or if you know somebody who's open to podcast guests and you feel like I'd be a great fit, let me know. Again, reach out to me on the socials. The links are always in the show notes to reach out to me because I'm really actively looking to grow my impact. And yeah, and part of like a big idea that landed to me was let's reach out to other podcast hosts because I really enjoy the platform of podcasts. I think it's fun. It's a really great way to connect with a really wide audience. So with that in mind, I've had the idea for a while and the execution has been lacking. And it's an interesting space because I learned over my life that basically like the second you have an idea, you need to be taking action on it. I'm in this very interesting phase of my life now where I'm really starting to grow an understanding that like sometimes that idea and inspiration will strike, and that does not mean that you need to immediately take action. So that's it's an interesting learning because it definitely flies in the face of like a lot of what I've been told. Um, so, I'm always learning and unlearning things and creating like more openings for what's coming. So what I in this space of like reaching out to podcasts, I'm like, okay, there's when we talk about like lots of manifestation teachers talk about taking inspired action. And I have confused that with I have this idea, it's an inspired idea. I feel 100% aligned with the idea, and therefore I must take action now. But the action part of that idea doesn't feel inspired. The action part of that idea actually feels like I'm like really like pulling teeth. And it's been in like a great place to generate doubt for me because then I have this like sort of ongoing internal conversation that, well, if I'm unwilling to take action on this really great idea, well, then that must be why, fill in the blank. I'm not seeing the results I want. I'm not having the success at the volume that I want. It's taking longer than I want. It's blah, 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 right? Like we can come up with all kinds of things. What I'm understanding more and more is there may be a slight disconnect in terms of like linear time from when the inspired idea arrives and when that flow of inspired action happens. So, for example, I had this idea of reaching out to podcast hosts, I think maybe like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. I don't remember exactly. And yet the actual like action where I'm not taking action out of the sense of obligation and frustration and like fear and lack and friction, which only is going to generate more of all of those things. And I am 100% not interested in any more of those things, right? So in order to actually like take action out of a place of inspired, motivated, encouraged, feeling grounded, feeling neutral, feeling like let's send out these requests and see what comes back. Like there was a delay in calendar time between those two events happening. So today that came forward. I'm feeling this like I said, this spooling up of my energy. My focus is starting to come back. Not quite yet at the place of like writing content, but like ready to start taking action on some of these other things that have come through. So I do. I take action and I'm reaching out to podcasts and I created a tracker because I'm all like fancy and shit. So I'm like, now I'm actively tracking, like, okay, here it is. Instead of just like keeping it all in a doc, I actually have it like on a spreadsheet, which is going to help me just kind of keep things straight as I continue to grow. And then I fizzle out. But I'm at this place where I'm still very much wanting to do something. And it's like early in the day, like I've really disconnected from hours of the clock. But there is something to be said for the fact that my husband doesn't get home until like 6:30 or 7. And I've got all of this time available and I want to create. I'm not in the mood to just like generally I'm not a lot actually anyway to just like sit and watch TV or watch movies or whatever. I I'm not in a space of learning. So for example, I'm not feeling this like drive to listen to a podcast or maybe retune into a course or program that I've invested into or like just do a course that I've invested into, right? Like I'm not in the space of learning, but I still have this like feeling of wanting to do something. And also, I've run out of steam on the thing that I was doing. So in this case, where I was reaching out to podcasts, now, and I want to share with you like some tangible, because they're so fucking subtle, but some tangible um, flags. I don't like the word trigger, but flags that have come to mind that say to me, okay, we're actually stepping out of this like effective, productive space and we're stepping into a totally different energy. So, for one, the main one, and this takes a second often for me to recognize, but I'm getting faster and faster at it because I'm aware of it now. The main one is I suddenly find myself sort of drifting off into things. So, really great example. I'm like doing all the stuff for reaching out to podcasts. And as I'm kind of like, okay, what's next? I've reached out to these. I notice that I'm starting to focus on small details. So now I'm starting to like do tiny little tweaks to the spreadsheet that I built. Or I'm like, okay, I've sort of clicked on a page a couple of times. And then my brain goes, oh, yeah, you wanted to double check the podcast categories that you have associated with the podcast. Why don't we go check those out? So there's still aligned and they're sort of like in sort of tandem to the topic that I've been working on, but my attention and my focus is starting to spread out. So that's again super subtle because all of those things are valid, right? Like it's valid that I wanted to confirm the topic category things that I have for my podcast. It's valid that I was, tweaking and finishing up the formatting of the spreadsheet. Like all those things are valid tasks, which is why they're really hard to recognize as first is like, oh, the focus is starting to wander. So then it steps up a level. So the next change, the next sort of, and I'll call it the spreading of the focus because like it's kind of like you go from like understanding a sharp, clear picture to sort of it slowly fades and hazes away that suddenly you just are kind of staring off into the abyss. So the next, I would say, sort of phase is that I suddenly like I'm picking up my phone and I'm like, maybe it's time to like, oh yeah, my podcast dropped today and I forgot to do a specific promo. So how about I just like quickly jump on the stories and do a little promo? Now notice it's related to like this whole overall topic. I'm talking about podcasts, right? Reaching out to hosts and blah, blah, blah. So all still valid, still needs to happen. Promo obviously really, really great for the podcast. But I'm like, okay, now I need to do this, which always means, because Instagram can be kind of a jerk sometimes, that I need to stay on Instagram for a while, A, for the story to upload, right? Because it takes a second for the story to actually fully upload. And B, it's also good to like check out other accounts, boost the algorithm to understand like what I'm interested in, let it know I'm a real person, all the jazz. I don't understand Instagram fully by any means, but I am learning as I go. So this, again, related, but now my focus is starting to spread. And it's kind of like a really great insight. And again, like a little alert. Okay, Amy, your focus is literally about to just completely dissipate. So the last and final stage where the focus is like just gone is so the episode is uploaded. Now I just find myself randomly doing things. Maybe I'm scrolling on Instagram. Maybe I'm like clicking across the tabs on my screen. Maybe I'm like, I don't know, like suddenly I have to go to the washroom. So I close the laptop, I go to the washroom, and I sit back down. What happens in this stage is that I find myself feeling adrift. I don't know exactly what I want to focus on next. I don't seem to have this like focus available for me to like switch into the next task. And it's really, really, really unclear what to do next. So I'm not necessarily, I usually feel a little bit like antsy in my physical body where I feel like I want to move. So often when I start to recognize this, I will then shift into, for example, I'll go for a walk outside, or depending on the day and like timing and energy and all that jazz, I might do a workout, something that's moving my body because I can feel my body is telling me, hey, we've got energy to shift and to move and to release. Let's go do something that does that for us. And what's really powerful in that time is if it pairs beautifully with the space of like being open to learning or expanding, or wanting to like raise my vibe, great, because it's such an easy solution. Like literally I put on my sneaks, I grab my headphones, I go for a walk or I go for a run, right? Super easy to like sort of, what's the word, satisfy that space. But times like this, and so that tends, I would say, tends to happen more when I'm like not right in or immediately post my menstrual phase. It tends to be more when I'm in like um, the other the other three phases. So when I'm still in that like finishing off menstrual, just post menstrual, so it's sort of a space of like 3 to 5 days, which happens to perfectly coincide with about this the length of a work week. That's not always the most clear. And also because my body's energy is coming back up, like going and doing a workout is not at all aligned with where I'm at. So I've tried in the past to like push through. It's always a mistake because then I'm exhausted for the whole rest of the day and generally the whole next day. So just tune into your body. If you notice, you're like, why the fuck do I feel suddenly so tired when yesterday I felt like this, like amped up? It's probably because you fed into that need to move your body, but you overdid it. You kind of like pushed too hard in the direction. So now that we have an understanding of like what happens when we're kind of coming out of this state of flow and recognizing some of the phases that exist as we go, well, what the fuck do we do next? Because that really is the $1,000,000 question, right? Like, how do we shift out of that into something next? Now, I'm sure a lot of you listening to this, you might be thinking, oh my God, Amy, like to have the time freedom to do that sounds fucking amazing. Like, I'd come up with all kinds of things. I'd have a list of things. Listen, I am not short on tasks to do, okay? There's not a shortage of like things that I can focus on. I can come up with a billion things, all right? That's not what I'm talking about. And yes, totally understand, very different. If you have a 9 to 5 that you like actually need to be specifically like doing things and you have specific tasks, that is a little bit different. When I was working my 9 to 5, now my of course my energy would shift throughout my cycle because it has to. That's just kind of how my cycle works, but I would find myself pushing through. And times like this would feel so frustrating because it literally feels like I'm trying to push through like molasses, right? Like I'm not going fast. It doesn't feel easy. I'm having a really hard time focusing. And like the chatter inside my mind is very busy trying to convince me that I'm not doing a good job. And that's very frustrating and disheartening place to be. So I totally get that like this space and time freedom that I have currently does not exist for many of you, which is why I'm on a huge mission to like help teach you how to create that in your life. And also bear in mind, this is a specific season in my particular life as well. I am super aware of and have been reminding myself consistently that this is a specific phase and season of my life that in a short amount of time, in terms of like linear calendar time, in a short amount of time, that's going to shift. I'm going to be back into like high production, busy, lots going on, lots to do, like consistently having my calendar full of things. And then the challenge will be, how do I manage that and also balance the need that I have for rest and refueling and like just time to myself, right? So this is a different lesson. The lesson that I'm in right now is more related to like really leaning into rest, being okay with rest, not needing to like masculine my way through it and create this whole different like sort of toxic forced production space, because I can produce like like nobody's business, but that is not always helpful or healthy. So very different like lesson that I'm in and very different season that I'm in. So I just want you to understand that. But understanding these shifts in how both my body energy and my source connection energy, those states of flow, understanding how these work and being able to start to like piece them apart has been really powerful. So here's what I have been testing, and give these a try for yourself when you're in those spaces. Some of them are going to work and some of them are going to be like, this bullshit, this doesn't work at all. And that's 100% fine because it's going to be whatever works best for you. What works the best for me may not be at all good for you, or it may be great. So, and some of them, okay, I'm going to like straight up say this. Some of them are going to seem like stupid simple and like completely obvious. And you'll be like, well, Amy, duh. And I say them because we are so good at dismissing the simple things, the duh things, and we move on. We're like, well, show me, it can't be just that. It's got to be something more. Actually, like the simplest thing often wins, but we keep dismissing it. So don't dismiss it, okay? So the first thing, when I find myself in this odd sort of in-between phase where I'm like sometimes in the flow, sometimes not, and like wanting to produce but not feeling super focused, and right, like basically what I've been talking about all episode long. First thing is, okay, A, just practicing some awareness, understanding what's going on. B, and I'm going to lose track of these letters at some point, is to is to practice kindness. Oh my goodness. And this is one of those like duh moments. And the reason that I'm saying this to you is because if you are not paying attention, you will very easily and very naturally slip into this space where you start beating yourself up. You start doubting yourself. The chirping inside your brain starts to say, see, this is why you're not successful. See, this is why you haven't gotten the promotion. See, this is why you're always behind. See, this is why it takes you way longer to get things done. See, this is why, come up with 100 different reasons as to why you're not good enough to do what it is that you desire to do. So the act of giving yourself kindness is actually so powerful. It's so interesting. So last week, so when we go up to the cabin, I tend to like work out of the town where my husband works because it's like a big drive. It's a whole thing. Anyway, the point is, I happen to be working out of the store where my husband works, and he wanted to leave early, so that's cool. Like I just fit my day to whatever works for him. And he was saying to me, he was talking about the end of the day. So I met up with him for lunch, and he was talking about like he had to get this like order done. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then afterwards, I'm like, so how'd it go? He's like, well, I got the order done and I got a few other things done. And then I was just done. I didn't have a lot of focus. I didn't, there wasn't really enough time to kind of start the next thing. Didn't really want to start the next thing. And I'm like, well, what did you do instead? He's like, I just like kind of chatted with the team, kind of hung out, caught up, shared some laughs. And then that way, like when it was time to go, I was ready to go. This, this shouldn't sound like earth-shattering insights. And if you watch the natural flow, like if you work in an office setting or some kind of in-person setting, you've probably witnessed a version of this over and over and over and not understood what was happening. I know years ago, like gosh, it's more than a decade now, when I last worked in an office, which was a while ago, everybody in the office, almost everybody in the office was men. Fascinating to like work in a space. It's like primary, like it was like me and like one other woman. And she left earlier, like her day finished earlier, whatever. So like seeing them all go through this wind down cycle at the end of the day, I could never figure it out. I'm like, why are you all talking to me? I'm trying to get stuff done. But like, I think we literally worked 9 to 5, and like around 4:30, everybody started to just sort of disconnect. If they had things that they had to get done, well, they'd get them done. But the chatter started to like pick up around the office. People are talking about like stuff that's happening in the news or what they're doing for the weekend or whatever. Like it just all of a sudden the energy changed. It changed and shifted out of this like serving customers and producing into this like kind of winding down. Now I understand very much what's happening. That is like our male counterparts. That's part of their natural energy cycle. So men have a 24-hour clock, all right? Women do not. which is why it feels so frustrating when we're trying to pack ourselves into this 24-hour clock that is optimal for men and not for women, right? So they naturally, the way the shift in hormones in their body naturally right around, I think it's like 3, 4 o'clock, shifts into a more social space. Why the hell do you think social hour is always like 4 to 6? That is prime social connection time for men. First thing in the morning, like 8, 9 in the morning, they get big shots of testosterone. They are all about production. They are all about doing. They are all about like going after it, which makes sense because it's paired perfectly with the start of the workday. And the start of the workday is what? All about going after it. And then in the evening, right, sort of like 7, 8-ish o'clock at night, everything winds down. Everything. Like their energy completely like dips. Everything drops down. They're not even feeling, for those of you who are in heterosexual relationships, not even feeling super social, right? Like they kind of start to tune out. They're watching TV. They're kind of whatever. Because they are naturally cycling down, getting ready to go to bed. That's how their energy cycle works. Ours works differently. So there are times when I am in hyper production mode, like I get almost annoyed because my husband is like, "Okay, I'm done now. Can we go?" And I'm like, but like I could keep going for like 3 hours, right? And I can't change or can't stop because we're going somewhere and I get it and that's fine. But like I find that kind of frustrating because I'm in this like amazing space where I'm producing and I'm like really feeling in flow. And now all of a sudden I have to stop doing what I'm doing. As a very quick aside, I decided to take off my sweater and be all like surreptitious about it. But my sweater managed to get stuck on my necklace. And so I had to do some Spider-Man calisthenics to just get out of it just then. Okay. So we have these like totally different energy flows. So I'm in this space now. I suppose it'd be like closest to that sort of not quite social, not quite resting, still a little bit like production, right? So it would be like a weird mix of sort of like mid-afternoon slash right before dinner slash almost ready for bed time in our male counterparts day. It's a very different energy and focus that's happening. So we talked about, I lost track of my steps. See, this is why notes is sometimes helpful. So we talked about like the awareness, we talked about the kindness. So the next thing really is, this is where I start asking myself questions. Once I've realized and recognized that this flow state has dissipated, I'm out of this focus, and again, reminding myself, because I can feel the energy starting to boost in my body where my body wants to move, and then reminding myself of like, yes, we want to move and movement is good. A hard workout is not in alignment for my body energy right now because it's going to completely derail like tomorrow and the days after, right? So keeping that in mind, this is why that kindness is really important. Then I start asking myself questions. So I'll ask myself questions like, well, what would feel really good to do or work on right now? And if that generates nothing, because sometimes nothing comes up, then I might try a few more specific questions. Would it feel good to go for a walk? Would it feel good to listen to a podcast? Would it feel good to maybe walk on the treadmill or ride the stationary bike? And if all of those things are coming up as duds, then I'll start to like practice some different questions where I'm like, okay, so at the end of the day, what would feel really good to have done? And that's one of my favorite questions to ask. Like, if some of the obvious ones up front aren't coming up and aren't generating insights, being able to put myself a little bit forward in time and say, okay, what would have what would have felt? How did I say that question? What would have felt really good to have done? So often, if nothing else sparked an answer, that will spark an answer. Okay. And it will give me something like, it could be completely random. And it's like super important to understand that this doesn't necessarily have to be tied just specifically to business. If you want to tie it specifically to your job or to your business, of course you can. But sometimes that feeling really good to have done is something totally different. For example, hey, it would feel really good to have baked a batch of cookies, which is something that I did yesterday. It was amazing. I sent a big plate of like freshly baked cookies with my husband to work today, right? Like, great. Sometimes it would actually feel really good to clean the bathroom because like it needs to be cleaned. I was going to do it on Friday, but like today's feeling super like aligned for that. Sometimes it would feel really good to put my laundry away or to um like grab the next chapter in that book that I'm reading or whatever. Today's, for example, as I'm sitting there going through these questions, literally was like, oh my God, this would be a great time to record a podcast episode. I'm going to record a podcast episode on exactly this that I'm experiencing. And bam, here we are. That question can be really helpful to open things up. And finally, if that question has nothing, if like you've tried and like try a few different questions, try some open-ended ones, try some yes, no ones, try some this or that ones. If nothing's happening, if you're getting like nada out of your kind of lighting up phase, your, yep, this feels aligned phase, sometimes you just gotta fucking do something. It's probably one of my least favorite states of energy to be in. It feels so fucking frustrating because it just feels like you have this like internal like sense of I need to want to gotta do something, but I don't know what. I know a whole bunch of things that are a no, and I've got nothing that's a yes. So in that case, I'm just like, okay, what's the least awful thing I can do right now? And I might just get annoyed with myself and say, I'm fucking going for a walk. I'm just put on some rock music, or I'm going to put on some like quiet contemplative music or whatever, but like just get out and move my body. And inevitably, just doing something will shake loose whatever it was that was kind of standing in that space. And awareness will arrive in, downloads will come in, insights will show up for me. I'll just be like perfectly divinely guided to like a podcast episode or a playlist or whatever. And sometimes there are like no yeses that, that give me super clarity. So I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going to go do something. And that's what generates some clarity and some insight for me. And if nothing else, because sometimes it doesn't, I'm just going to straight up say sometimes there isn't like insight and clarity and downloads that happen, right? Like we seem to be, at least I know I am, that I feel this sort of pressure to go after it. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but the energy is gone. That sense of kind of friction and frustration fucking goes away. And that's great. And then I'm back into the part of like practicing kindness because now I might be at the point where like, Kate, it's time to start getting ready for dinner. Don't feel like I've accomplished a lot this afternoon, but hey, the energy is gone, right? So here's hoping that tomorrow is better. And I think I've yet to think of like find an example where that hasn't been the case. It's pretty much always been better. And like then that energy and production space builds. And then again, like it just kind of builds and flows through the cycle where like the further I go through my cycle, the more productive and focused that I am. So I think that's probably the full sort of like energetic flow. This is kind of an odd episode, and I am 100% in trust here that this episode is landing exactly where it needs to land, that it's opened up some insights, some awareness, maybe some aha moments for you. I'd love to hear from you, like share out with me, send me a DM on Instagram and let me know, like, what did you think about this episode? Was it helpful for you? Or were you like, Amy, that was a load of fucking garbage? Also fine. I'll probably still keep doing some of it, but like, I want to hear. And of course, if you haven't yet, like, leave a review of the podcast. Oh, before I forget, I mentioned this earlier, and then like, we've just been 40 minutes talking about something else. So a reminder that this week, like when this episode is going live, we are doing the Unfuck Your Money workshop. Let me think. So by the time this episode gets published, the first day will be done. We will be getting ready for day 2. So this week's workshop. My brain is going a little bit haywire. This week's workshop is at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm doing it live on Instagram again. However, as a reminder, you can register for the workshop, which will give you 2 things. One is access to the replay page. super important if you're hearing this episode for the first time and you missed yesterday's training, because obviously you can't go back in time. Or if you can, let me know. I'm very fascinated about the technology that you're using. So the replay page will have yesterday's training video up. All of the videos, once I finish the training, they get posted onto the replay page. You can rewatch the trainings or catch up if you missed them. You couldn't attend live for whatever reason until August 23rd. So you have a little more than a week for the trainings to go back and review them. So that's one thing that you get, is you get access to the replays. The other thing is that when you register for the workshop, once you go through, you'll get the next, hey, congratulations, you're in, you will have the opportunity to do an exclusive VIP upgrade. So this upgrade I have chosen to keep only available for folks who register for the workshop. It is an audio bundle that has 3 fucking amazing audios inside of it. You have a hypnosis, which clears 5 very common limiting money beliefs and installs 5 really powerful new beliefs. You have a powerful meditation visualization, which is designed to give your subconscious mind crystal clear instructions of what you are creating. And then there's an Askformations, which leverages the power of questions and your brain's your base operating, that your brain has to come up with an answer to a question. Okay. So it leverages that natural neurobiology within your brain in order to help you create more, gain new ideas, create more money, create more wealth, whatever it looks like for you. So you get access to those, the opportunity to upgrade those 3 in one audio bundle, but you only get that access once you register for the workshop. So to do all of that, to go and register, you go on to amyvanmeel.com/workshop. The link is always in the show notes. So of course, grab it there. And I hope that you register. I hope you join for the workshop. Just a real quick heads up. For those of you who have registered before the workshop, there are, I think, 7 emails that are tagged to the workshop. So you get one that's like, hey, congratulations, you're in, save the spot, and has the dates. And then you get an email before the workshop happens and an email after the workshop with the replay page link. And that's for each day. So I've seen some folks who've unsubscribed sort of halfway through because I think they're like, oh my God, this person is fucking spamming me. And I promise you I'm not, but I want to make sure you have the details to join me for the workshop every day. All right. With that, my loves, thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. And I'll do one more little reiteration. If you are a podcast host and you're interested in having me on as a guest, or you know of a podcast that would be really nicely aligned to have me on as a guest, I am very open at this point to connect with some other podcast hosts and join them on their podcast. So let me know. Reach out to me on the DMs on the social media. Links, of course, are in the bio. And with that, I wish you an absolutely amazing day. Have a great week ahead. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform and help me reach more like-minded people who are ready to expand their life. If you haven't yet followed me on social media, find me on Instagram for extra love and inspiration by following @AmyVanMeel or visit my website at amyvanmeel.com. I love you so much, babe, and I am damn proud of you. I am already excited to connect in the next episode. And in the meantime, believe in yourself with the confidence of a 5-year-old.